What's up, guys? Today we're doing quarterback 3, JJ McCarthy out of Michigan, the national champion. Jim Harbaugh's #1 quarterback in the draft. Now, I don't think he's nearly that good. But I do think that this draft has Drake May up here, Caleb Williams here, JJ McCarthy here, and then a bunch of stuff I don't want any part of, at least not in the first or maybe even second round. So he's probably going to go top 5. And originally when I graded him, I was way higher on JJ McCarthy than I thought the public was going to be. Because I was like, I'd take him top 10. And I thought most people thought he was a second round pick. But in the last week or so, there are rumors he might go 2 over Drake May. So I had to make a video, show you what I think. I'm keeping this one a little shorter. I'm not showing as much film. JJ McCarthy makes that easy because he didn't throw the ball very much. There's not a lot of film to go off of. But enough yapping to that film. First up, we're talking range and power. And JJ McCarthy's got a cannon. I give him an A-. On this throw, he's letting the ball go at the 37, and it's only getting to about the opposite 29. And that's like a 40-yard throw downfield, but it's all the way across the field. So you add another 40 yards to that. He can really launch the ball. Like right here, this is right down the middle. You don't have to worry about hypotenuses. We don't have to do any geometry. Lets the ball go at, let's call it the 43. Caught at the goal line. The man can throw the ball 60 yards. Do not worry about his arm strength. He can drive the ball to all areas of the field. That being said, he does have a bad habit of babying the ball, where he leaves it short on deep balls to make sure it's caught. Because his deep ball is not his best accuracy zone, and we'll get to that later, but there's certainly no worry about his arm strength. As far as velocity goes, his ability to put touch on the ball or throw a line drive, he throws with some of the best zip I've ever seen given his arm strength. Like, yes, Josh Allen throws the ball harder, but Josh Allen has a much stronger arm. So just granted that JJ McCarthy has an A- arm, he gets every ounce of it into the ball when he's trying to throw with velocity. And he also, as you can see in this clip, really knows how to take some off and put touch on it. Finally, I think JJ McCarthy's got a really natural, really easy release. It's really quick. He doesn't have to really put a lot onto the ball. And you can see on some of these flea flickers, it's catch and release. He can throw the ball 40 yards seconds after, or milliseconds after catching it. I also think McCarthy gets a bum rap on his athleticism because this guy's a real athlete. He didn't run a 40, so we don't know if he can actually run the 4.40 he claims he could, but against NFL-style defenses like Ohio State and Alabama, he looked like a real athlete. This play against Penn State is ridiculous. It should have been a sack. Or sorry, this isn't Penn State, it's TCU, but still. There's NFL athletes on this defense, and he is running all over them like crazy. He's a really good runner. Like, maybe not a Justin Fields type, but a very good runner. And as far as playmaking goes, sometimes he puts that to good use, and sometimes he doesn't. Earlier, we saw that play where he almost threw an interception on the very first play of the game. Well, here it's almost exactly the same thing, and he makes the throw, because he can throw really well from many kinds of platforms. He is really athletic. He's very comfortable rolling out of the pocket, and he can throw across his body with accuracy and velocity. So he's got all the playmaking skills, it's just that sometimes when he makes plays, his decision-making goes to hell. There is no disputing, though, that he's a great athlete. The most important part of grading JJ McCarthy is going to be his pre- and post-snap processing. Now, he's known as a game manager, a system quarterback, a field general type, but that's just because they didn't actually use him that much, not because he was so heady. The difference between JJ McCarthy turning out to be Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson is almost purely on how you evaluate this part of his game, and frankly, I'm really struggling to, because there's just not a lot of tape. Michigan didn't ask him to do much, so I don't know what he can do when called upon. That's why I gave him a B- in both categories. It's below average, but it's not really a hole in his game. However, I could be totally wrong. He could be really smart and he just never got to show it. Or he could be really dumb and he could have gotten really sheltered. Against the biggest opponents he played, you tend to see these boneheaded, reckless mistakes. This is the very first play of the Rose Bowl against Alabama. And he's rolling to his right? And there's an option here. He's a little late, so he doesn't realize that he could have, and probably already should have, thrown the ball to number 6 here. It's already way too late to throw the ball to number 1 over there. At this point, JJ McCarthy should be throwing the ball out of bounds, or he should be really putting that ball in the dirt, allowing number 6 to peel it off the grass so that either he gets it or nobody gets it. And instead, he does a half measure. He puts the ball in between number 1 and number 6. He puts it on the sideline, but not quite out of bounds. And he gives the Alabama defender an incredible chance to turn the entire game on its head on the first play with a pick on the sideline. Now, luckily for him, linebacker didn't get his feet down. Later in the same game, though, we see that he has really good improvisational skills. You see, we've got defenders on this side of the field all going deep, so they're turning their backs, right? And that allows this entire middle area of the field to be attacked. And McCarthy doesn't really have a route attacking that area of the field right now, right? Like, theoretically, McCarthy could try to hit this receiver here. However, there's going to be a safety over the top. That's how you end up throwing picks. Instead, McCarthy kind of improvises, stays on the same wavelength, thinking in real time with his underneath receiver, who turns upfield on a wheel. He ends up wide open, and McCarthy has the presence of mind to get him the ball for a big chunk, however, putting him on the sideline and underneath those safeties, protecting him from a big hit and avoiding a turnover. Now, it's babying the ball a little bit, but he certainly understands leverage and can think on his feet. So that's a positive sign for his post-snap processing. However, there's a lot of really negative signs as well. Look at this play from the Fiesta Bowl against TCU in McCarthy's sophomore year. And that's the other hard thing is McCarthy just turned 21. It's really hard to project what he'll become in 5 years when he's the same age as Justin Fields. You know, like, he's got a long runway to become better. However, on this particular play, he's looking to his left, and he really shouldn't be. That's the meat of the defense. What he should be looking for is this little read in the middle of the field here. So on this particular play, TCU is going to run a little bit of a funky look. They're going to have cover 4 shell over the top, but then they're going to play basically what amounts to a cover 3 underneath. So I would like to call this a cover 7. It's cover 3 on the bottom, cover 4 on the top. Regardless, you got 8 dudes dropping. You got 3 men rushing. You can't go deep on this particular play. So at the risk of over-cluttering the screen, I've drawn out what Michigan's route concepts are going to look like. You've got a deep curl at the top of the screen, and then you've got the running back curling underneath him on that side. Now that's your short side, which means that you've got, just look with your eyes, you've got 6 dudes on that side of the field in this coverage. You can't throw to that side of the field with only 2 routes, especially when your primary route is going fairly far downfield directly into that shell coverage. He's going to be double teamed. McCarthy doesn't recognize this pre-snap, so he's already looking to the wrong side of the field, right? Additionally, you get exactly what you want on the backside. All right, I'm going to erase all this stuff because it's making it messy, but here you've got this post run by your outside receiver, and one of your tight ends is curling underneath. The post is going to perfectly run away from this coverage, and your underneath curl is going to be wide open. It's first down, so anything is okay. Furthermore, even though he started on the wrong side, the running back has now come wide open. So McCarthy has to hit that running back. And instead, he stares. He stares, he thinks about making an extremely misguided throw. You can't hit this guy. It's too far downfield. It will get picked off. And if he doesn't get picked off, he's at least going to get his back blown out and not in the way that some people like. And then McCarthy finally makes a terrible mistake by running around, fumbles while taking a sack when he should have just thrown the ball away. It's a universal failure. The pre-snap recognition was terrible. The post-snap recognition was terrible. And the running pocket awareness was terrible. And then sometimes, like, just this. What are you looking at? You're trying to throw the slant, you're not thinking. He makes crazy bad mistakes. But he also looks like a polished passer sometimes, getting through his reads. Now there he just misses the throw. But, like, watch. He gets 1, 2, all the way across the field to his third read, recognizes where he's going to have a small NFL-sized opening, and throws the ball, but the receiver stops his feet. It's a miscommunication on somebody's end. Either 14 should have kept running and it would have been an awesome, awesome rep for the quarterback, or McCarthy didn't understand what he was looking at and freeballed. There's a lot going on. It's really hard to understand whether McCarthy is a low caliber processor or this offense is just not for a passer. Here, remember earlier I showed you the really good rep of him understanding leverage and audibling his throw so that he's not quite throwing the play, but he's throwing it a receiver open. Here, just lead your receiver and you've got an easy touchdown, right? Just put this ball here. Instead, McCarthy tries to throw a back shoulder that he doesn't need to throw, and the receiver doesn't expect it because it was totally unnecessary, so it's incomplete. But you'll see here, understands a tight window, recognizes that the safety's not looking where he's supposed to look, throws the ball right over his shoulder with perfect placement on his second read. That's a really incredible rep. So there's just incredible inconsistency with his mental game. And frankly, that's to be expected of a guy who's 19 and 20 years old. Maybe when he wises up, he'll wise up. When it comes to pocket presence, I think McCarthy's average, and the reason I say he's average is because I see glimpses like this where he does a really good job of managing the pocket, stepping up, stepping out, and using his fantastic athleticism. But Michigan had a really great offensive line, so he didn't really have to do a lot. That being said, look at this. Throwing while being hit, fearless, stands in under pressure. Some people worried that he's too small. He's like the same damn size as Rome Odunze. He's 6'2", 230, wires that ball in there. Perfect throw, accuracy, completely unaffected by the pressure. That's fantastic. Being said, most of the time, wide open pockets, kind of like this. Sometimes he panics in them, sometimes he doesn't. This is a terrible sack to take. And not just because there's a receiver wide open. Now, this is scramble drill. And scramble drill, you can't really blame a guy for not noticing open receivers because everybody's just making shit up as they go along. But, you look at the end zone. Somebody's not covered. And I understand you're rolling to your left, but you have to figure out a way to get that ball to him rather than taking a sack. The final area of JJ McCarthy's game that we're going to go over is his accuracy and precision. Now, accuracy is whether or not you hit the bullseye. Precision is how tightly grouped your targets are. See the top right? The graphic should explain everything. The first zone of accuracy we're going to talk about is deep accuracy, and I thought JJ McCarthy was terrible on his deep ball. You'll see some that are good, but you'll see a lot of this. Underthrowing receivers that are open deep when you don't need to underthrow it. And sure, he gets bailed out with the pass interference. And sure, that's in the NFL going to be just as good as a catch. But I would like to see more of this. Hitting your deep receiver in stride, that leads to touchdowns. There's certainly no reason McCarthy can't throw the ball deep because he, as we established already, he's got a very strong arm. He just has a tendency to baby the ball. He underthrows it, prioritizing possession over yards after the catch. And I wish he wouldn't do that. I've also noticed that most of his best deep throws come on these line drives like that, where he's just showing off that gun of an arm. He struggles on deep balls, however, when he tries to put some touch and some air under it with a moon ball like Russell Wilson is famous for throwing. Now, I prefer the moon ball. That's how you allow your receiver to go and get under it and make a difficult catch or a downfield catch at the very least. It gives you a lot more room for inaccuracy. I think the deep ball is certainly the worst part of his game, and that is worrisome because I think it's the most important part of a game. Like, yeah, sure, you throw it the least often, but if you can hit a deep ball every time, you're Josh Allen, you're Patrick Mahomes, you're really hard to stop because you only have to be right once out of every 3 plays in order to have an extremely efficient offense. So we'll get through a few more examples here, but on the whole, JJ McCarthy didn't throw a lot of deep balls, and he didn't throw them very well. Where he excels is his intermediate ball, those balls that are about 8 to 20 yards downfield, especially over the middle. He throws with great velocity, and those line drives are killer. He also understands leverage and how to attack a linebacker who's turned his head. That makes him really, really good at attacking the middle of the field, both in between the hashes and as far as depth goes. This is where I get my comparisons to Aaron Rodgers and Ryan Tannehill from, because when he's throwing over the middle with velocity and accuracy, it's incredible to watch. Short accuracy, I'm not going to show you a minute full of clips of screen passes and checkdowns. One really bad weakness in his game, however, is that he has a really bad tendency of throwing behind his target. And this is where the precision comes into play. Because his accuracy is very good, but all of this is inconsistent, right? They're borderline catchable, but they're just behind the receiver. He's not leading his guys. And in the NFL, when you don't lead your guys, you throw picks. So even though most of these are on frame and at least catchable, they're not accurate. Right? The ball placement is bad, and he struggles with ball placement. Most of the time, he's very good at hitting a target he's aiming at, but when he misses, it's behind. In the end, I ended up giving JJ McCarthy a very similar grade to what I gave Zach Wilson coming out of BYU. I gave him a 2.4, which is like the lowest grade you can get while still being a possible franchise quarterback. For reference, a 2.3 is a C+, which I think is exactly average. It's that middle line where you think you got a guy, but you kind of want to replace him with something better, like an Andy Dalton with Cincinnati. That being said, before I found a couple more games of film, I had him at a 2.5 tied with Caleb Williams, but there's just no confidence behind that eval. Now, I found the MSU film, and I didn't think it was that impressive, so I knocked him down even a little bit further to 2.4. But even before that, it was the same problem with JJ McCarthy. He's got 3 games with 30 dropbacks or more. Drake May and Caleb Williams had 30 dropbacks or more in every single one of the 11 games I graded of them each. So there's just not a lot of film, and there's not that many games because he's so young. And they blew a lot of teams out, and they played a lot of bad competition. So there's just not much for me to go off of. Right? Like against Penn State, he only had like 9, 10 dropbacks. Even if he played terrible, it would be impossible to show that because there's just not enough examples of him playing badly to go off of. So he wasn't sheltered the way a lot of quarterbacks are, where he's got a great system and scheme and he's able to throw screen passes that go for 50 yards. It's more just he didn't do anything. They ran the ball all the time because they were a better team. So I have very low confidence in my eval. If you told me he's Zach Wilson, I would not be surprised at all. But if you told me that he became Aaron Rodgers or Ryan Tannehill, I wouldn't really be surprised either because he's got all the physical skills. I can see the arm strength, the mobility, the quickness, the accuracy. I just don't see the consistency because in order to see if something's consistent, you need a lot of examples, and there's not a lot of examples. In order to tell if somebody's processing well, I need a lot of examples, and there aren't a lot of examples. So strong arm be damned. Alleged 4.4 40, that's probably more like 4.5 or 4.6, but hey, that's Desmond Ridder. He could be Desmond Ridder. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I just need to see more consistency, and I need a bigger sample to understand how his brain works. If I could meet him in person at a pro day, I could pick his brain and see what makes him tick, maybe I'd know better, but I couldn't, so I don't, so I can't know. This is one of those evaluations that I'm going to have to leave some things to the pros because they have access I don't. What do you guys think? You think this is just a system quarterback? Do you think that winning is a real trait? You somewhere in the middle like me? Sound off in the comments. For me, he's quarterback 3. I have him just below Caleb Williams. And I'd take him top 10. I might take him top 5. But I wouldn't love it. I wouldn't be thrilled. It's just I think he's got about a 50, 60% chance of hitting and becoming a really good quarterback. And then like a 30% chance of sucking so badly you can't even play him, like Zach Wilson. But at least, whereas Zach Wilson was dominating Division II teams, JJ McCarthy beat up on Big Ten teams, it's not a lot of consolation. But for me, I have Drake May, best prospect I've ever graded. Caleb Williams, about as good as Trevor Lawrence, which is good, but not great. And then JJ McCarthy, who's a lottery ticket, and then a bunch of guys who are just bridge quarterbacks and system guys. So he's kind of your last hope. At pick 3, I might take him just because that's the only quarterback around. Anyway, till next time, I got film to grind. Hasta.